Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about a video that has been going around about not having culture and going around looking for ways and trying to steal from people. And that reminds me about a video I saw on that was like, they were like, if black people leave TikTok, I mean, who is going to bring the trend and all that? Like you see them wake up every day to one aesthetic or the other, and that aesthetic is something that they move around stealing from people. You all know that they do not have culture. And back then, their culture is always to take from people and then put their own and all that. But a lot of them are like finding out that they do not have a lot of things to offer anymore because they feel like their skin is not protecting them or giving them that giving them that opportunity like it used to give them back in the day. Before, you all know how they are, the beauty standard and everything evolves around them and the rest of it. But now that is not it. Then when you look around, you see a lot of them moving around looking for a way to mix up their complexion. Now you look around, you see all of them like interracial marriages and all that. Some of them, they are tired of being white and they are looking for something better for their kids, like, having mixed kids that come off so much as black. You all know that already. Just let's get into this video.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons. It just doesn't make sense that every 14 working days or so, there's a new aesthetic that has a name, a term, a look, a vibe around it, but no personality. And I say this because I just watched Mandy Lee, who's like hands down my favorite TikTok fashion trend analysis, all that kind of stuff. Her talking about how previous subcultures as well as aesthetics were named after they had a vibe and personality. That's the main key thing, personality attached to it. When I studied media in college, we looked at how the media treated British subcultures. So whether that was the teddy boys, mods, the skinhead, they had their names after they had personality, after they had social and political views aligned with each other. But it wasn't just this name attached to this pretty aesthetic look. While I'm saying it's, young white women, and it might seem like I'm putting distance between myself and the aesthetic, anyone can get caught up in it, literally. The reason I say young white women is because we know this app loves beauty, this app loves desirability, and unfortunately, the people who are positioned at the very top of that totem pole are young white women. Clean girl aesthetic, quiet luxury, cold girl winter, like all of these things are driven and led by white women. And then what it means is it's going to drive our consumerism, it's going to drive capitalism, make us want to acquire all these products for this look that doesn't have a statement, doesn't have a personality attached to it. I say this with love, but I do think it's time for everybody to get back to having a personality of their own. We need to stop trying to chase these aesthetics that we think then reflect our socioeconomic value. They don't. I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons.
Because the status in being white and whiteness as a beauty standard is waning quickly. It's because after decades of having children, biracial and multiracial children with men of color, predominantly black and Hispanic men, the children, particularly the daughters that have come from those unions, are very quickly being put on the pedestal as the primary beauty standard for everyone to meet. And so now blonde hair and blue eyes is becoming less the standard, and it's more and more naturally tan skin with a light splattering of freckles, very thick, voluminous, curly hair, green, gray, or hazel eyes, the pedestaled, multiracial, biracial baddie aesthetic. There was a time when white women knew that they were the standard and that whiteness was enough, and they would regale us with tales of how many different types of white they were mixed with. Oh, I'm French, Dutch, a little bit of Portuguese, and some Scottish. You remember those days when white women would tell you how many different types of white they were? But now everybody has a native, a black, a Hispanic, maybe even an Arab parent or great grandparent somewhere in the woodwork. Because whiteness alone simply doesn't hold the weight that it used to when it comes to beauty standards, they now have to create things like clean girl aesthetic and office siren and a mob wife aesthetic in order to exotify whiteness again.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis.
I like that video. You should go watch it. It made me think about a video I made a couple months ago where I was basically talking about how white American culture is consumption and capitalism. People who weren't initially white, who became white over the course of American history, I think essentially traded in their respective cultures for the ability to consume and capital and the things that they needed to be consumers, because that is whiteness. And right now capitalism is in crisis, and I think that people whose identities are wrapped up in their ability to participate in capitalism are like frantically trying to like figure out what they will be upon its like collapse.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons.
I don't think they're having an identity crisis. It's called their culture vultures. That is their identity. They like to sit here and take from different cultures, particularly black and non-black women of color, then, take whatever they took from us, rebrand it into a whole new name, say the whole sticky bangs and stuff like that, or the mob wife aesthetic, right? Like they do that, and then they rock it for about a good 3 to 5 business weeks and move on to the next culture and subculture that they can steal and rebrand for the next 3 to 5 business weeks. That's literally their brand, because they don't have culture. I said what
I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons.
I agree with everything this content creator just said, but also as a 36-year-old woman, I have seen white women solely only have to be white. 90s, all they had to do was be blonde with big breasts and be white. Just be blonde, tall, and white. What do we hear them say now currently? It's not cool to be white. Instagram first started to gain popularity amongst young people in 2012, 2013. There was a stark difference between white women, black women, and POC women. You can go back and Google that. You could see the difference. Girls were very all-American, Hollister, Abercrombie and Fitch, and black girls are what they're coring and aestheticing now. Clean girl, and whatever else they come up with. For so long, white women have yielded the power of the people around them because they have no internal power of their own. They need someone to define womanhood for them at all times. Hence the patriarchy. Instead of doing the actual work and figuring out who they are as a collective, instead of pink wearing hat hypocrites, they don't want to do the work. They just want to yield the power of people around them once again. Hence appropriation. One of the number one markers of white supremacy is identity theft. They're just doing what they've always done. Can't core and aesthetic everything, and this goes for everyone, not just white women. Your daily lives determine your aesthetic. Your environment determines what you look like. I'm not going to walk around talk about farmer core, and I don't live on a damn farm. Like she said in the video, they gain their names by the environment and the culture engaging in said aesthetic for whatever reason it's developed, whether that's farming, around the way girls, or cottage core, which is just country. So for once in white women's lives, they have to look in the mirror and gain a personality. You know what I mean? Because for so long, this was the personality. What happened, girlfriend, sister friend? And everyone, black women are not your personality.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis.
This creator goes on to say that women are having an identity crisis because there's like a new aesthetic you've probably seen the like clean girl aesthetic is out, mob wife aesthetic is in. And I personally think this is because we lack community in a way that we're like reaching out and saying, oh, let me be a part of that. Let me be a part of that. I want to fit in. It's just like the adult version of like, can I play with you on the playground? Which in my opinion is quite sad, but also not surprising. We kind of live in a world where we're getting less and less real connection, in-person connection, and we're getting a lot more of it through the screen. And so I think it makes women feel like they're part of something when they look a certain way or can identify a certain way, when in reality, you're just a part of a trend that's going to go away in a few weeks. We need real communities.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons.
The identity crisis is a curse. It's a curse. And it's a curse because white people, specifically Americans, refuse to acknowledge that the only culture they have is colonization. That's how they culture. That's exactly why there are 15 different aesthetics every year for white people, because all they know is colonizing. It is quite literally ingrained in white people to colonize cultures. I mean, think about America as a singular entity, right? As the empire. Not only did America steal this land, they stole people from another land to cultivate the land. And now America is in Palestine, aiding Israel in stealing more land. This is white culture. White culture is to steal. And honestly, I don't know why we continue to be surprised. They have been doing this for eons, for centuries. Colonizing and stealing the fucking resources, colonizing and stealing cultures. White people quite literally created religions out of other people's cultures. There is a reason why, I'm not going to get into that, but let's just keep it a bean. Their culture is to steal. Of course, they're going to have 15 different aesthetics.
I think young white women are having an identity crisis for a couple of reasons.
They absolutely are. They absolutely are. In the same way men are having a crisis of masculinity, the pale Occidental girlies, the white girlies are having an identity crisis. Now, and the thing is, go and watch that original video, because she's talking about the fact that the girls are constantly like cycling through all of these aesthetics, clean girl aesthetics. And then it was the quiet luxury. And now we're on the mob wife trend and things like office siren. All of these aesthetics. All of these aesthetics basically to cover up for the fact that people kind of don't have their own personalities anymore. And are just looking to hop on these trends and these aesthetics, right? So, and it's also kind of related to this blow up that a lot of the white girlies are having about Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie not being nominated for Best Director and Best Actress, respectively, at the Oscars. Even though the film in total has something like 8 nominations. Ryan Gosling is nominated, I think, for Best Actor or Best Supporting, and America Ferrera is nominated for Best Supporting. The film itself in whole has been nominated for Best Picture. So, like, it's not like they're snubbing the whole film or whatever else, but the completely unhinged reaction to these 2 white women not getting Oscar noms kind of ties in to the same like psychosocial like phenomenon we're seeing with the Occidental pale girlies regarding these aesthetics. And that is okay, I'm going to talk about white men for a little bit, okay? Now, white men are having an identity crisis, which is why we're seeing all of these alpha bros and all of these, all of this masculinity content and all the rest of it. Because imagine Imagine being raised with this presumption and being told over and over and over that you are the best, that you're not only special, but that you are the inheritor to some grand legacy, that the world owes you so much, that so much belongs to you by dint of who you are. And then one day it's like you wake up and everybody else is like being treated like a human being. Where previously you were the only one that got such treatment. Now it feels like, oh, who are these people? How dare they take my things? Don't they know who I am? Don't they know that this is reserved for me, and nobody else? Right? So too with the white girls, okay? Because that's why these men were like in love with the film Joker. And in fact, with films like Fight Club or Dog Day Afternoon, or indeed any of these films that have to explore the male rage and why are the men so like enraged, anything that has to explore man rage, think of any of those films, right? And so I had quipped on Twitter like yesterday that I think Barbie might be white women's Joker, because they're reacting the same way to Margot and Greta not being nominated, the same way that like that pasty egg-shaped fuck was having an absolute meltdown talking about the Oscars have gone woke. They nominated Parasite instead of Joker because Joker was so seminal and so important. Like, that shit was basic. And it's the same thing. Now, the aesthetics are just one part of it. Here's another part of it. Regarding the white women, it's being told over and over again, you are the most beautiful. You are the most feminine. Next to you, all others are trash. They can only hope to have what you have. And then it's like you wake up one day. Well, no, it's actually a lot more complicated for the women, because it's not just that you're being told you're beautiful. It's that your beauty, your societal hierarchy of beauty and everything else comes with the very real cost of stealing and poaching bits and pieces from other people and other cultures and other women, and taking advantage of their disadvantaged position to sort of wear them and their features as a costume and their cultures as a costume, right? So now the white women don't know who the hell they are, because in a lot of the larger Western that's been kind of dominated by American, like, monoculture, right? What's happening is that we're seeing, I think, the results of how these European people, these people of European, like, ancestry and heritage, sort of lost touch with their roots and deliberately distanced themselves from their cultures, from their roots, from their languages, from their own spiritual practices and everything else. Like, think about how, you know, you get all of those like Viking fetishists, like those people who are like, oh, the Vikings, white culture, but then they're absolutely like running scared at the sight of like a Krampus festival or something like that, right? And it's like that. It's like, but hun, that's your culture. That is your pre-Christian culture. Can't you recognize it? And of course they don't recognize it, because they've spent so long taking bits and pieces from everybody else and forcing other people to assimilate into this, their bits and piece, like put together, like sort of Franken culture, that now they kind of don't know who they are underneath all of it. It's why the girls are going for things like the mob wife aesthetic, because a lot of people notice that this has a lot in common with Italians, Albanians, Russians, people who actually, groups of people who themselves have a quite contentious relationship in mainstream whiteness, actually. And so it's a case of like, yeah, they're having an identity crisis, because when all you've done is strip the best parts and cherry pick the best parts out of other cultures from other women to wear as your costume to make yourself look better, and deliberately like taking yourself away from your own cultural ancestral heritage in order to form an identity that privileges you above all else, what are you left with? Nothing. And a lot of people are realizing that, oh, this is very shaky ground and this is very thin and I can't build a personality here. There's nothing here. They have looked inside and realized that it is empty. It is vacuous. And I think that's what's happening here. This is very long. This is very rambly, but that was just me speaking off the cuff, or just off the dome.
I think young white women are having an identity.
I literally love that video. Everybody should repost it. My husband and I talk about that topic all the time, of how having hobbies and having interest is so important, and just having a personality is super, super important to just your well-being. Reason why is because I kind of went through a really dysfunctional childhood, and I leaned on my creativity to save me. And I was really into arts and crafts. I started playing piano in junior high, then taught myself how to play the guitar, and was always into music, and started learning what she was talking about all these subcultures, the whole skinheads movement. I got into a lot of punk music. I got into a lot of straight edge stuff. And for people that don't know about any of that stuff, they just hear the loud music. They're like, ew. But it's actually really, really political, and it talks about really important topics from the wars, the 80s and 90s, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, my point is that whenever life was crazy, I had these hobbies to fall back on and to bring me back to life. And having these interests did really contribute 100,000% to my personality and to my growth as a person. It allowed me to not get easily influenced by other things. And by all means, even though I'm really into a lot of different kinds of music and stuff, I'm still very trendy. I love my Stanley Cup. I won't ever get in line in Target those people, but I'm still very trendy. But I guess the point is when you're so easily influenced and you have no interest, no hobbies, everything's gonna rock your world in not a good way, you need to have your own identity, because the world is ever changing. There's new trends all the time, and you're gonna change with it. And then at the end of the day, when it's just you alone, you're who am I? And totally having an identity crisis, and how sad. So yeah, I love that video. And I think instead of bashing all these young little girls that are going into Sephora, we should probably think about who's influencing to do all that, So poor girls, they don't know. We were once 10 and 11 too, trying to be all the older girls. So they don't know better. Their parents, yes, should keep them in line, but you know what? Kids are going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. But yeah, having your own personality, nobody can take that away from you. Nobody. That stays with you to the grave. So super important.
So this is all I got from the speech and all that. I think this is really very educative, and a lot of people are jumping into some kind of aesthetic, forgetting their own personality. People forget that their personality is what matters and all that, not jumping from one aesthetic and all that to the other. And there is something one of the ladies said. Punk-colored women or punk-colored people think that it is just all about them, or I think that was just before they thought it was just their world, everything evolves around them, and that they are the real beauty standard, and it's just them. Every other person emulate them. And one of the ladies said back then, when you see a pop-colored person and you ask about their background, or you're just gonna hear my father is Russian, my grandparents are Polish, the other one maybe Italy, France, but now if you look around, I think I was discussing this with one of my friends, and we were like in a neck, probably in 2050 something. Trust me, everybody will be in kind of dark tan, not probably not, maybe not black, but really, but yeah, tan, maybe like my skin or a bit lighter than my skin and all that, because they already are finding out that they are really left with nothing, that it is just only their color, and that their color is not even covering up a lot anymore. So they are looking for a way to, like, mix up, because if you look around, you see most of them getting hitched to black men, or you see their men also moving to black women, and some of them looking for, you see a lot, yeah, you all can see a lot of biracial, like, and yeah, they keep just producing them. When you act like, there is nobody that, most of them, when you see it, it's either their father is black or Hispanic or maybe some era, like you see them moving away from their own culture. Are you okay? They do not have culture. Let me say from their own culture, but from what they actually, from what they actually called culture, because before it was like it was like their culture. But now they found out that thing ain't even that they do not even have good culture. They do not have culture at all. So they are jumping around looking for a way to get some, because like, what they do? All they do is like, try to steal from this person, steal from the other person the next day and all that, and mix them up and the rest of it, So now they are saying that, man, we are going to be left with nothing. Even our color ain't even protecting us anymore. And let's crossbreed. Now you look around, you see a lot of people crossbreeding, and you see their kids. You see their kids looking like me, or a little bit lighter than me. That when you see them, okay, maybe daddy is black, So yeah, I really do understand but then I think it's great. They create their own personality and all that, and stop jumping around, because when you start jumping around, I think all you guys, you all already know, like, what they did, colonization and all that. So what they do is move around, colonize and all that. So, and now, like the beauty standard, I want to say something. You all know that black women have fuller lips, like, beautiful nose, eyes and all that. But their lips, and when you see their features, like, it's just like, one in town, like, it's just like very beautiful, right? Because like where I live, it is very rare to see, I don't know how to explain this. I don't want to come out like, having prejudice, but it's just me explaining. Maybe like Russians, because I see a lot of Russian, Ukrainians around me and all that. And probably when you pass them, they're like, oh, you are beautiful. Your lips are so full. Even some will come and ask you, are your lips, they will ask if it is real. Like, sis, am I supposed to be moving around with fake lips, fake lips or something? So you see them ask, and if they do a lot of, like, they put a lot of filler on their lips to make it grow bigger, because they want to, like, or first of all, when they see me, they're like, oh my God, they say some kind of things, like, then you find out that, trust me, they really do not love themselves that much. Like, they really want to look like people that look like me. They want fuller lips, they want big boobs, they want big butts and all that, and then tiny waist, because you all know that is black woman kind of curves and all that. So you see all of them paying a whole lot of money to get filler and all that. Like, why do I have to pay to get my, So, but it is what it is. I think this is where I'm going to draw the curtain. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.